good evening, if you're still out there. This is Jordan Hale, and you're listening to 99.3 FM, The Last Frequency. If you're hearing this, you've survived the first wave. Maybe you're holed up in a dark apartment, still hoping the lights come back on. Maybe you've turned your car into a bedroom. Or maybe, like me, you've got just enough gas, solar, or luck to keep a tiny transmitter alive long enough to feel a little less alone. It's day 6, I think. 6 days since the collapse started. 6 days since credit just died. And I don't mean rates went up. I don't mean cards were declined at checkout. I mean it flatlined, froze, disappeared. This country didn't run out of money. It ran out of trust. It started with a glitch, they said. A small one. An automated audit at Equifax. Or maybe it wasn't a glitch at all. Some say it was intentional. Something buried in the back-end code of the national scoring systems. But that's the thing about a trust economy. When the lights go out, nobody believes anything anymore. What I know for sure, what you know too if you've tried to fill a tank or buy a loaf of bread, is that credit vanished overnight. Cards stopped working. Auto loans, mortgages, personal loans, all of it halted like someone hit the kill switch. You probably felt it before you heard it. Gas pumps flashing red. Grocery stores pulling down metal shutters in the middle of the day. Venmo declining everything. Apple Pay stalling, even for gum. People at registers blinking in confusion. And then fear. By morning, 70% of people couldn't buy what they needed. Not because they had no money, but because the money they had didn't matter without a lender standing behind it. Phone lines to the banks? Jammed. Apps? Glitched. Customer service? Automated apologies that looped like a broken toy. No one got answers. Wall Street went quiet. Not a word from the Fed. CNBC had anchors blinking at the screen like their prompters froze. One even took off her mic and walked off live TV. I watched that moment. I replay it in my head a lot. They knew. Before we did. Or maybe they were just first to stop pretending. I've been told we've got new listeners joining in from parts of the South that just lost internet. Welcome to the long night. I know it's getting cold. Some of you wrote in about Chase and Discover slashing your limits by 80%. A couple of you said you were overdrawn on an account that had money in it. You're not crazy. That's happening everywhere. The algorithm started labeling entire zip codes as high-risk zones, not people, places. If you lived there, your score just disappeared. Experian is calling it unscorable. TransUnion says they're pausing new calculations. Equifax, no comment. But I'll give you mine. They're covering their own asses. This isn't a recession. This is something worse. This is a nation going cold turkey from debt. And what happens when 330 million people wake up from a dream and realize it was all built on a 4-digit lie? They freeze. They panic. Then they start fighting over whatever's left. Got a letter today, handwritten from a woman in Ohio. I'll just read it straight. Her name's May. Jordan, I listened to you last night from the barn. It's the only place with a signal since the tower went dark. My husband got declined at the feed store. He had cash, actual bills. But they told him they're not accepting paper anymore without a card to match it. Said corporate policy. Then they shut the lights off and locked the door. We went home with nothing. The next morning, the sheriff came by. Said our auto pay bounced. We never set one. Turns out the mortgage company auto-switched us without consent. Now they're calling us delinquent. We have 4 days to leave. We never missed a payment. Not one. Tell people, Jordan, this isn't just a glitch. This is a reset. May, Ross County, Ohio. She's right. Renters who relied on credit cards to auto-pay their rent are now being marked delinquent. Mortgage deferments revoked. Balloon payments showing up overnight. Landlords panic-blaming tenants. Tenants breaking into their own apartments after digital locks shut them out. Some of you have written to ask if this is happening everywhere. It is. No one's protected anymore. Not the middle class, not even the rich. Because even they didn't pay for anything up front. They just borrowed with better terms. Now there are no terms, only silence. A man called in from Nevada, said he saw 3 Repo trucks circle his neighborhood like buzzards. 2 homes emptied. 1 woman tried to stand in front of her car. They hit her with a restraining order she couldn't afford to contest. She's sleeping on her cousin's couch now, 74 years old. These aren't city stories. These are everywhere stories. I've got another page of letters, and I'll read them. Every single one. But first, let me give you the latest on what the banks are saying, which is nothing. Capital One has stopped issuing statements. Discover has frozen operations. SoFi's website is down. Buy now, pay later. Companies have started disappearing. Klarna just shut off logins. A firm sent out a push notification 2 days ago saying, "We're making changes to better serve you." Then nothing. And Sallie Mae? I'm hearing reports from students that their accounts were debited for full loan balances without notice. Parents crying into disconnected helplines. One student told me she woke up to a wheel boot on her laptop. Debt recovery firm said it was electronic collateral. She couldn't afford a lawyer to fight it. I have no words for that. Just breathe. If you're still listening, stay tuned. There's more to say. There's always more. And if you're alone tonight, know this. You're not the only one watching their past life vanish through a cracked screen. We are all credit ghosts now, living in borrowed homes, on borrowed time, inside a system that never actually belonged to us. This is Jordan Hale. I'll be back after the break, if there's still a signal. And if there's not, just keep listening. You never know what's still out there. This is Jordan Hale, back on 99.3 FM, the last frequency. Still transmitting. Still breathing. Still trying to make sense of what we're living through. I want to talk about a word that's come up more and more in the letters I've been reading. It's not collapse, or credit, or even debt. It's shame. There's this quiet guilt running through people's stories, like they did something wrong by depending on the system that fed them. But this isn't your fault. You didn't break the machine. You were part of it, just like the rest of us. And now it's grinding itself to pieces. A man in Arkansas wrote that he's ashamed to face his wife because he couldn't pay for groceries. He said he felt like less of a man because his card got declined in front of her and their daughter. I want to speak directly to him right now, and to anyone else out there carrying that same weight. You didn't fail. You were set up. You were taught to build a life on trust you never owned. And now that trust has been ripped away without warning, without grace, without mercy, that's not shameful. That's sabotage. What we're seeing now is a slow-motion collapse, not with sirens and fire, but with screen errors and silence. A listener from outside Minneapolis sent me a voice message on a cassette tape. Said she found her old boombox in the attic and wired it to a CB radio. Her voice was shaky, but I heard every word. She said her credit score dropped from 780 to undefined in 24 hours. She never missed a payment. Always paid more than the minimum. but now she's invisible to the system. They erased her because the algorithm flagged her block. A whole zip code, gone from the map of trust. Think about that. Your trustworthiness is now measured by your proximity to strangers. A neighbor defaults, and your ability to buy eggs vanishes. We were never individuals to them, just variables, risk clusters. Now, they've pulled the plug, not just on our credit lines, but on our autonomy. We're not customers anymore. We're liabilities. I want to read something from the edge of the country. A man in Maine, no name given. Just a note slipped into an envelope with a leaf from a sugar maple pressed inside. Jordan, my son turned off the fridge last night. Said it was wasting solar. He's 10. He told me we should eat the perishables first before they go bad, then ration the cans. I asked him who taught him that. He said, "No one. Just seemed like something you'd say on the radio." He listens to you when I fall asleep. Says your voice helps him dream about what the world used to be. I thought you should know you're in the room with us, even when you're not. No name, Maine. I sat with that one for a long time before reading it out loud. Because if I'm in the room with you, then so are the other voices, the ones that still call in, still write, still whisper across what's left of the wire. There's a new term floating around. Some of you may have heard it. The creditless. People who've been shut out of every platform, every account, every store. They're not just poor. They're outside the grid, and they're finding each other. Church basements are turning into credit hubs. Gas stations that used to run scams are now keeping ledgers of who helped who. Bodegas offering groceries on handshake trust. One family in Detroit set up an honor system where you take what you need and leave what you can. They painted on cardboard. No score. Just character. That's what I'm calling the trust networks. You won't find them online. They don't run on apps. They run on memory, favor, grit. One woman lets her neighbor use her car in exchange for food. A retired teacher tutors kids in math and gets solar batteries in return. It's not barter in the traditional sense. It's belief. Belief that someone will return what they owe, even if no database tracks it. Is it fragile? Of course. But so was the system that came before. We just didn't know how brittle it was until it cracked. Some of you have been asking what's next. What comes after the freeze? What happens when the banks finally speak? I'll tell you what I know. There's talk, unconfirmed, of a national credit forgiveness plan. The Fed trying to calm the markets. But investors are already furious. They want blood, not absolution. I've heard that Blackstone and Vanguard are preparing lawsuits against the government for breach of market stability, whatever that means. And now, the government's proposing emergency credit stimulus, low-interest loans that nobody can access. It's like throwing ropes into a pit and expecting people with broken legs to climb out. There's word that Congress broke into shouting matches today. One senator called the others cowards behind numbers. Another had to be escorted out by guards after trying to start a fistfight. If you think they have a plan, you're kidding yourself. This isn't leadership. It's a room full of arsonists arguing over who left the stove on. Meanwhile, in the real world, debt collectors are mobilizing. Private firms, armed and unregulated, knocking on doors. Some are just reclaiming property. Others are hiring ex-military to seize electronics, cars, even furniture. A woman in San Antonio said a man came to her house with a badge from a firm she'd never heard of. Said he was there to take her son's gaming console and school laptop. Called them unreturned loan assets. She said no. He called backup. She's missing now. If anyone in the area knows what happened to Maria Santiago, reach out. She deserves more than silence. I want to tell you one last thing before I take a break. There's a story going around from a town in Montana. Small place, only a few thousand people. The local mechanic refused to let a Repo crew tow half the block's cars. Said he wasn't going to watch his neighbors lose their wheels because of a number in a spreadsheet. So he parked his tow truck sideways across the only road in and pulled the keys. Within an hour, the whole town stood behind him. That road stayed blocked for 2 days. The Repo guys backed off. It's not a victory. Not really. The trucks will be back. The banks will send lawyers next time. But it was a line in the dirt. And sometimes that's all we've got. This is Jordan Hale. I'll be back shortly with more letters, more stories, more truth. Stay warm, stay with me, and if you can, stay kind. This is Jordan Hale, broadcasting once again from 99.3 FM, the last frequency. The sun's gone down, at least where I am. The static is thicker on the line now. Feels like the air itself is struggling to carry sound. If you're still listening, I'm with you. That hasn't changed. If you've just joined us, maybe the power just cut out in your neighborhood. Maybe your phone bricked on you and you found an old radio in a drawer. Maybe it's the first quiet moment you've had all day, and now you're just sitting in the dark, trying to figure out how we got here. Let me catch you up. The credit system in this country, our cards, our loans, our trust networks, they're gone. What used to approve us at checkout, what kept our rent running and our subscriptions active, what we never even thought to question, is frozen, dead, cut off. Not slowly, not like a slow leak, like a pipe bursting in the middle of the night. And now, everyone's soaked. It's not just credit that's broken. It's the belief that it'll ever come back the same. You might think that sounds dramatic. But ask the man in Kansas who was denied insulin at the pharmacy because his card flagged him as high risk. Ask the couple in Oregon who had their mortgage balance called in overnight. Ask the college kid in Boston who had to leave campus when his student loan payments failed and his housing key stopped working. There's no gentle way to say this. We've crossed into something new, and no one's coming to explain the rules. I got a note today from a listener in Georgia. Said the Repo trucks are coming every morning now, like clockwork. Said they parked across the street last night, lights off, just waiting. One neighbor tried to sneak his car out at 3 a.m. They boxed him in, took it, didn't say a word, didn't even leave paperwork. Just drove off like they were reclaiming a library book. And maybe that's how they see it. We're not people anymore. We're assets in default. You hear that sound? That hum underneath my voice? That's the generator. I only run it for a few hours a day now. Fuel's too hard to come by. I trade with a guy in the hills, gives me a gallon for every solar battery I recharge from a busted array I found last week. That's how it is now. You don't buy, you barter, you trade, you earn trust one favor at a time. There's a kid down the road who brings me news in exchange for food. He's sharp, quiet, maybe 15, 16. Wears a Red Sox cap too big for his head. He showed me a map he's been drawing, marking where the mobile collectors show up, what time, which way they go. Told me the Repo trucks are avoiding certain towns now, places where resistance is forming. He didn't use that word, resistance. He just said, they're blocking the roads. They've got guys with rifles. They're not scared anymore. I asked him how he knew. He just smiled and said, because they came to our town once. Didn't come back. We're hearing more of that. Rural towns organizing to ambush convoy routes. Mechanics building traps out of scrap metal and busted engines. One place in Missouri rigged their main intersection with spike strips and flashbangs. The tow crew bailed before they even made it a block. I'm not saying that's the answer. I'm not saying it's the right path. But when people lose everything, they lose the illusion of obedience. I want to read a message now from a woman in Utah. Jordan, we don't have a store anymore. The manager closed it when the scanners stopped working. Said nothing could be sold if nothing could be scanned. We offered cash. He said it's not backed by credit anymore, so it's unverified. There's a church downtown now handing out food from their own stockpile. They don't ask for anything. Just names. Names of people who show up, people who help, people who take. They're building a list, not to punish, but to remember who stood where. Maybe this is what comes next. Not points, not scores, just names, and how we carry them. Marissa, Cedar City. If you're listening, Marissa, thank you. That might be the clearest thing anyone said all week. A name isn't a score, it's a story. And when this is all over, if it ever is, that's what people will remember. Not who had a high limit, but who gave what they had when it mattered. We've had more updates from the East. Bodegas turning into trust hubs, people setting up their own currencies, scribbled paper notes, crypto wallets written on index cards, promises recorded on cassette. Is it reliable? Number. But it's real. It's more real than a credit score that evaporates because someone 3 states away defaulted on a car loan. I got word that credit unions in some parts of the Midwest have gone rogue. They're breaking from federal regulations, issuing their own scrip, converting vaults into food banks. One branch in Iowa replaced all its teller windows with shelves full of beans, rice, powdered milk. First come, first serve. Donations welcome. No interest rates required. One of the tellers wrote in, says she used to push credit cards with 29% APRs. Now she gives out jars of peanut butter and listens to people cry. She said it feels more like banking than anything she's ever done. Let that sink in. There's a kind of clarity in this moment, like fog burning off in morning sun. We're finally seeing the system for what it was, and what it wasn't. It was never designed to help you, only to assess your risk. And when that risk gets flagged, even once, you're out. There's a lot more to cover. More letters, more signals coming in. But I want to end this hour with a quote from someone I heard on a shortwave pickup this morning. I don't know his name. Just a man speaking through static from what sounded like somewhere near Colorado. He said, "We thought we were living in houses, but we were living in loans." That line's been stuck in my head ever since, because it's true. And now the loans are gone, and so are the homes. This is Jordan Hale. You're listening to 99.3 FM, the last frequency. Stay close. I'll be back in a while, if the signal holds. You're still with me. This is Jordan Hale, and you're tuned in to 99.3 FM, the last frequency. The clock says it's almost midnight, but that doesn't mean much anymore. Time's gotten soft around the edges. Feels like the days don't end. They just slow down until night takes over. If you've been listening since the beginning, thank you. If you just found us, welcome. You haven't missed much. Just the end of the world we knew. It's quiet here now. I've turned off most of the lights. just one bulb running off a salvaged solar rig in the corner. The hum of the generator has faded to a low cough. It's on its last legs tonight, so I'm rationing what's left. This signal might get rough. If it cuts out, I'll be back when I can. That's the promise. I've been thinking a lot about silence lately, about how many places must be quiet now. Not peaceful quiet, not the kind you sit in with a good book. The kind of quiet that presses in from the edges, when you know something has gone wrong, but nobody's saying it out loud. That's what most of the country sounds like now. We got another letter from a listener in Pennsylvania. Said the ATMs still light up but don't dispense anything. One of the machines started spitting out receipts with balances, but no way to withdraw. He said the people waiting in line started arguing, then shouting. One man tried to pry open the machine with a crowbar. No one stopped him. They just watched. When the world breaks, people don't always scream. Sometimes they just stand and stare like they're waiting for someone to fix it. But no one's coming. I've been getting updates, real ones, not corporate press blurbs, from people inside the lending industry. Anonymous, scared, but angry. One woman worked at a regional bank for 12 years. She says all internal communications have stopped. No memos, no meetings, just silence from the top. She wrote this: "We used to have systems for this, protocols for credit freezes, market dips, fraud alerts. But this is different. The models aren't failing. They've been pulled. We can't even calculate risk anymore because the metrics were deleted. It's like someone erased the whole playbook and told us to keep smiling." That lines up with what we're seeing. Not a glitch, not a patch failure, a full-scale wipe. The decision to stop trusting the American consumer. But why? That's the question that's gnawing at people now. Why pull the plug on an entire country's ability to borrow? Some think it was foreign interference, that someone compromised the credit bureaus. Others say it was an internal reckoning, a silent admission that the debt could never be paid back. So instead of owning up, they shut it down. I don't have the answer. I only know the consequences, and they're spreading. Tonight, I want to read you something from a voice you've heard before. An older woman from Iowa who's been leaving me voicemails almost every day since the collapse started. Her name is Helen. She's got a landline, a rotary phone, and a stubbornness that could outlast nuclear winter. Here's part of her last message, recorded just before sundown. "Hi, Jordan. It's Helen again. I'm calling from the back porch. Sunset looks like fire behind the silo. We lost power again, but I've still got this old radio, and your voice makes the dark feel smaller. There's a boy who's been stopping by. Says he's helping neighbors check on livestock. Can't be more than 13. Smart kid. Doesn't say much. Today he left a jar of pickles and a box of matches on my steps. No note. Just set them down and walked away. People are scared here, but not broken. We've been poor before. Not like this, but close. This town knows how to share. Knows how to make something out of nothing. I keep thinking about the first time I got a credit card. Nitin Satini Sears. I was terrified to use it. Thought if I missed one payment, the whole store would know. Funny, isn't it? Now I'd give anything to go back to that kind of fear. It was honest. Anyway, I'll call again tomorrow, if the line's still working. She always ends her messages like that. If the line's still working. Like she knows what we all know, that every call, every broadcast, every bit of connection is a kind of miracle now. Thank you, Helen. for your voice, for your memory, for the reminder that survival isn't always loud. It's slow, steady, stubborn. We've had new reports come in from across the northern states. Snows started falling in some places. Normally, that'd mean blocked roads, frozen pipes, maybe a quiet winter. Now it means something else. The Repo convoys are slowing down, not stopping, just harder to maneuver in the snow. Towns in Minnesota and upstate New York are using that to their advantage, plowing snowbanks into the streets to trap trucks, posting lookouts with radios. One guy told me they're using firewood to block access roads, not to burn, but to barricade. It's survival, plain and simple, and that's not all. In cities, I'm hearing about a shift. Landlords abandoning buildings, tenants locking themselves in, whole apartment complexes turning into fortresses. Some are even pulling together what's left of their money to keep the elevators working. Others are shutting down the halls, taping up the stairwells, boiling water over camp stoves in the lobbies. No one's waiting for the banks to sort it out anymore. Because they won't. They're too busy trying to figure out how to turn this disaster into profit. Let me give you a name: Apex Holdings. You might not have heard of them, but they're buying debt portfolios by the hour. Bulk buying collapsed credit from lenders too scared to hold it. Then they're sending out their own recovery agents. Not police, not marshals, private firms, no rules, no oversight. You hear a knock now, it's not an offer. It's an extraction. One family in Phoenix said their entire home was emptied in 90 minutes. No warning, no warrant. Just a letter left on the kitchen table. Assets reassigned under contract claim. What that means in plain English is they lost everything, and no one can tell them who to call. If you're hearing this and you work in enforcement, if you used to wear a badge and now wear a suit with someone else's logo, remember this: there are lines that don't show up in law books. You know where they are. And once you cross them, there's no walking back. I know I'm running long tonight. I know the signal might not hold. But I'm going to keep reading, keep talking. Because this frequency, this little flicker in the dark, it might be the only thread some people have left, and I won't let go of it. Not yet. This is Jordan Hale, still here, still breathing, still listening. I'll be back after I refill the tank and reset the antenna. Until then, stay human. This is Jordan Hale. You're still tuned in to 99.3 FM, the last frequency, if you're lucky enough to pick up the signal. Tonight feels heavier. The air's thick. Maybe it's the storm I can hear brewing outside. Or maybe it's just what the world feels like when every system you used to rely on starts sinking all at once. Before I get into the updates, I want to say something to the people who are tuning in for the first time. I know you might have just lost power. Maybe you walked into a room and the lights didn't respond. Maybe you tried to use your card and it just blinked red. Maybe you're holding a receipt that says denied, even though you did everything right. It's not you. This isn't a bank error. This isn't your credit union having a bad day. It's a collapse, an unannounced, unmapped, and, let's be honest, unforgivable collapse of the entire American credit system. You've probably already seen the signs. Gas stations running dry not from lack of supply, but from cards being rejected. Grocery stores closing early because no one can pay. Apps freezing. Wallets crashing. Apple Pay. Venmo. All blinking like they forgot who you were. You haven't been forgotten. You've been reclassified. From consumer to risk. That's how fast it happened. What was once instant approval is now instant denial. lenders pulling out, banks locking down. The entire economy we built on trust ran out of it. And here we are. If you've been with me since the first broadcast, you've already heard the letters, the stories, the quiet unraveling. But tonight I want to focus on the shift I'm starting to hear in people's voices. Not just fear, but something deeper. Anger. A woman from Tennessee called in through a makeshift transmitter she wired to an old ham rig. She said her father worked 3 jobs for 30 years, paid every debt, died with a perfect score. And now that score doesn't exist. Not in the systems, not in the backups, not anywhere. She called it erasure. And I think she's right. We're not just witnessing financial collapse. We're watching the erasure of everything we were told mattered. Scores, limits, histories, wiped, like they were nothing more than numbers on paper. We built our lives on those numbers, and now we're expected to start over. With what? The government's talking about emergency measures, credit stimulus, national debt amnesty. They've thrown out words like temporary recalibration and structural realignment. But that's just noise to people who can't buy diapers or pay for gas. Meanwhile, across the country, evictions have surged. Landlords, especially the ones backed by investment firms, aren't waiting. They're moving fast, faster than courts, faster than reason. Some have even started preemptive removals, claiming imminent default risk. I got a letter from Denver today. A single mother, 3 kids, 1 disabled. Her apartment was auto-billed through a rent app linked to her credit card. When the card froze, the app flagged her as a non-payer. She never even knew she missed it. Until her door lock changed. She came home from the grocery store to find a padlock and a yellow note. Property reclaimed due to system-level non-payment. She called the landlord. They told her to contact customer service, which, of course, no longer exists. That's the world we're living in now. One where people can lose shelter because of a silent line of code. And while they're losing shelter, the collectors are gaining ground. Private enforcement teams are multiplying. No uniforms, just badges printed on cheap laminate. One listener in Arizona said they're showing up with drones now, hovering over driveways, taking inventory, marking addresses. He watched them hover over his mother's house for 6 minutes. She waved at them. They didn't wave back. I've heard whispers, more than whispers actually, that some states are pushing back. Texas declared what they're calling credit sovereignty. No enforcement of federal collection orders. Local sheriffs refusing to carry out evictions. Even a few state banks have halted communication with the big 3 bureaus. I don't know how long they'll hold the line, but the fact that they're trying means something, and they're not alone. In Illinois, a group of mayors has reportedly begun negotiations with credit firms directly, not through Congress, not through the Fed, face to face. Town hall meetings turned into credit hearings. Citizens testifying in candlelit rooms, holding up statements that mean nothing now. One man reportedly said, "If my score's gone, so is your leverage." That line's been echoing in my head all night. They sold us debt as freedom. And now that debt's been called in, we're seeing the chains for what they are. But here's the part they didn't plan for. People are talking, connecting, organizing. I got a signal tonight, barely readable, from a group calling themselves the Creditless Circle. They operate somewhere in the Appalachian corridor. No fixed location, no leaders, just people helping people. They use no cards, no scores, no banks. They deal in trust. You give a thing, you receive a favor. Not tracked, not logged, remembered. It's a fragile system, but it's human. And right now, that's the most powerful currency we've got. There are more stories, more letters in the bin. I'll read them, all of them. But first, a thought I've been trying to shake. We keep calling this a collapse, but maybe it's not. Maybe it's a reveal. A moment where everything hollow finally cracked open. And now, we get to see what was hiding behind all those numbers. Maybe what comes next isn't a rebuild. Maybe it's a return, not to before, but to something we lost long before the credit froze. This is Jordan Hale, broadcasting through the static, through the dark, through whatever's still left. Stay with me. I'll be back after I cool the generator. And if this is your first night listening, welcome to What's Real. You're still with me. That means something. This is Jordan Hale, coming to you from 99.3 FM, the last frequency. If it's morning where you are, I hope you caught some sleep. If it's night, I hope you're somewhere safe, maybe with a window covered and a candle burning low. The station's holding steady. For now. I ran diagnostics on the panel earlier. The solar battery's at 32%. Not great, but enough to get us through another round. There's something different in the letters today. Something I didn't expect. It's not fear, not even anger. It's exhaustion. A tiredness that settles in the bones. A kind that doesn't go away with rest. The kind that comes from watching everything you've ever counted on slip away, inch by inch, and realizing there's no cavalry on the horizon. That kind of tired. One man from Louisiana sent in a short note. No envelope. Just a folded piece of paper shoved into a reused shipping label with the words, "No more words," scribbled where the address used to be. Inside it said, "I've stood in 3 grocery lines this week and walked out empty-handed each time. Not because the shelves were bare, but because I was. I used to have credit. That was my currency. I traded tomorrow for today. Now I have neither." He didn't sign it. Didn't need to. That voice? It could be anybody now. And that's what's sinking in. The collapse doesn't wear a uniform. It doesn't knock. It just waits at the edge of everything until it's your turn. We're hearing more now about the rise of informal markets, places that aren't on any map, that change location every few days to stay ahead of collection agents. Someone in northern Michigan described a parking garage turned into a trading post, people showing up with flashlights and handwritten inventories, 2 cans of soup for a solar charger, 3 diapers for an hour of generator time. No prices, just needs. It's messy, but it's alive. There's a woman in Brooklyn who started printing her own paper notes. She writes the value by hand, 1 coffee, 1 night of babysitting, 1 haircut, and signs them with a thumbprint. No barcodes, no QR, just trust. People laughed at first. Now her street's running on them. You can't clone a thumbprint with a deepfake. Not yet. Let me pause for a second and say something I've been meaning to get off my chest. I was $87,000 in debt when this started. Student loans, credit cards, 2 car notes, and a line of credit I took out to pay off another line of credit. I don't say that for pity. I say it because I want you to know that I was right there with you. Playing the game, moving the numbers around every month, staying in good standing while quietly drowning. When the collapse came, I felt relief. That's the truth. A short, ugly burst of relief. Like a prisoner who hears the chains break and realizes there's no more pretending. But that feeling didn't last. Because when the system falls, it doesn't free you. It just stops pretending to care. And now? Now I broadcast from a shack powered by a barter deal. I eat by trading voice for potatoes. I sleep with one ear tuned to the wind for movement that doesn't belong. You're not alone in this. I'm not above it. I'm in it. Same as you. Let me read a message I got this morning, taped to a box of instant oatmeal left on my porch. Jordan, I heard you say last night that people are forming new economies. That's true here too. But we're also forming new rules. In our building, we vote every night. On how to divide food, on who guards the stairwell, on who gets the spare inhaler. It's messy, and it doesn't always work. But it's more honest than anything we had before. Yesterday, a man tried to trade fake ration cards. Someone else caught it. He didn't get kicked out. We made him cook for the whole floor. Justice doesn't have to mean punishment. It can mean contribution. Just thought you should know. Lena, Flatbush. Lena, if you're listening, thank you. We've spent decades hearing that trust had to be measured, that it had to be scored, surveilled, approved by systems too big to question. And now we're seeing something different. We're seeing that trust doesn't come from a number. It comes from action, from the way you show up when it's hard, from what you give when you have almost nothing left. There's something happening across the Midwest. People are starting to build what they're calling ledger shelters, shared homes where entries are tracked in notebooks, not spreadsheets. If you eat, you log it. If you bring something, you log it. Not for punishment, for memory. So people don't disappear in the blur of survival. In these places, people aren't judged by their debt. They're remembered by their effort. That's a kind of value the system never accounted for. And maybe that's what scares it most. I'll be honest with you. I don't know where this ends. Some say we're heading toward a full reset, that the Treasury is going to wipe consumer debt clean and try to reboot. Others think it'll get darker before it stabilizes, that we'll see martial enforcement of financial zones, biometric locks on grocery stores, checkpoints for trustworthiness. But between those extremes, there's this moment, this quiet window where people are deciding for themselves what value really means. Not what it's worth in dollars, but what it's worth to each other. That's the world I want to live in, even if it only lasts a little while. This is Jordan Hale, broadcasting from a shack in the hills with nothing but a mic, a generator, and your stories. I'll be back once the batteries charge. Until then, stay sharp, stay kind, and remember, what we build in the dark matters more than what we lost in the light. This is Jordan Hale. You're still tuned in to 99.3 FM, the last frequency. And if you can hear me, you're still part of something that refuses to die. I don't know what day it is anymore. There's no calendar on my wall, and the time on my old radio clock keeps blinking 12:00 every time the battery hiccups. But I know it's been at least a week since the collapse really hit. Long enough for the disbelief to wear off. Long enough for the quiet to settle in. There's something different about tonight. A kind of stillness that feels earned. Earlier today, I stepped outside the shack just as the wind shifted. There were no engines, no voices, no birds, just the sound of dead pine needles dragging across dry dirt. The kind of sound you only notice when the rest of the world shuts up. And in that moment, I realized something. It's not that the world has stopped. It's that it's starting over. Different rules, different currency, different meaning. Before I dig into tonight's updates, I want to share a story from a man in Kansas City. His name is Aaron. He's a retired transit worker who used to live in a one-bedroom apartment downtown. Jordan, I always thought I'd grow old on a couch, watch game shows, microwave my dinner, maybe yell at kids from my window like a proper grumpy man. But when my rent bounced, twice, they locked me out. I slept 2 nights in the bus depot where I used to work. Third night, someone tried to mug me. I gave them my coat. Now I live in a storage unit on the edge of the rail yard. It doesn't lock from the inside, but I've got a radio. And I've got a broomstick I wedged through the handles. I listen to you every night. I don't know what this country is anymore, but I know I'm still breathing. And I know I'm not the only one who remembers how to be decent. That's something. Aaron, if you're listening, you're right. Decency isn't measured by what you can buy. It's measured by what you protect when everything else falls apart. That broomstick is stronger than any digital lock in a world that forgot how to care. We got confirmation tonight that a number of debt firms have merged. They're calling themselves Unified Recovery. Cute name for a machine that sends armed agents to front porches. One woman from Fresno wrote that they showed up at her trailer at dawn, didn't knock, just attached a barcode sticker to her door and walked away. No explanation. Later that day, her generator app flagged her unit as pending reassignment. When she called the service number, it was disconnected. The next morning, her power shut off. That's how repossession looks now. It's not loud. It's not violent. It's quiet. Like someone just deleted your access rights. Digital foreclosure at the speed of code. I want to talk about what's happening in Florida, specifically the coastal towns that depended on tourism, Airbnb rentals, beach shops, diners. Most of those places relied on debt to float their off-seasons. Summer would carry them, winter would tighten, spring would reset. That's the rhythm. But when the credit froze, it wasn't winter anymore. It was vacuum. I got a handwritten map from a listener in Naples. She marked red X's on every closed storefront in her neighborhood. There were 17. One of them was her bakery. We closed when Square stopped working. I tried to give bread away, but people were scared to take it, afraid they'd owe something later. Now I bake in secret. A neighbor trades eggs for 2 loaves. Another gives me sugar when she can. We call it the shelf pact. Nothing lasts long. Everything gets eaten. No waste. No ledgers. We don't even say thank you. We just nod. If you're listening tonight, whoever you are, know that that nod echoes louder than any receipt. I've been tracking a shortwave signal bouncing across the Rockies. Weak, garbled. Keeps repeating the same phrase. The account is closed. The balance is human. I don't know who's sending it. Might be a prank. Might be a poet. But it's stuck with me. Because it's true. Your value isn't in what you owe. It's in what you are. Let me tell you what's coming. We're starting to hear reports of biometric checkpoints, not government, private firms, setting up in high-wealth neighborhoods. Residents scan thumbprints to enter buildings. Food deliveries require iris scans. Transactions only go through if your profile clears a risk threshold. They say it's to maintain order. What they mean is they're building walls, not with bricks, with data. If your name's on the wrong list, if your address is in the wrong ZIP code, if your debt ratio crosses an invisible line, you're locked out, not just of the building, of participation. The rest of us, we're building something messier, but something better. I've seen glimpses of it, heard it in the scratchy voices calling across static, read it in the letters sealed with tape and hope. It's not perfect, but it's ours. I got a signal tonight from Oregon, a group calling themselves the Free Shelf. They park an old school bus on different corners each morning, open the doors. People come, no IDs, no forms, just stuff. Toothpaste, rice, socks, batteries. They don't ask for anything back. They only ask that you take what you need, and if you have more tomorrow, you bring it. Someone spray painted their motto on the side of the bus. Debt is not the price of dignity. That line deserves to be remembered. This is Jordan Hale. I'll be back after I check the perimeter and stretch my legs. The wind's picking up outside, and I've got a strange feeling in my chest tonight. Like something's coming. Or maybe it's just the cold. Wherever you are, don't forget that someone, somewhere, is still keeping watch. And I'll keep this frequency open as long as I can. Talk soon. This is Jordan Hale, still on the air, still breathing, still broadcasting from somewhere between yesterday's world and whatever this is now. You're listening to 99.3 FM, the last frequency. It's early, just before dawn. I can feel it in the way the wind shifts against the shack and how the shadows outside start to stretch the other way. No roosters around here, but there's a pack of dogs down in the valley that always starts up around this time. Some things don't need batteries to keep time. The world's changing while we sleep. Some of it's good. Most of it isn't. I want to talk about what happened in Atlanta. If you've got kids listening, maybe turn the volume down for a few minutes. 3 nights ago, something happened on the west side. A neighborhood, mostly apartments, mostly people who'd been on deferred rent since the pandemic days, woke up to lights and loudspeakers. Not from the city, from a private debt recovery firm called Halberd Asset Group. They called it a credit intervention zone. What it was a raid. No police, no warrants, just trucks, drones, and men in gray vests shouting into bullhorns. Residents were told to vacate, not by order of law, but by algorithmic determination of default likelihood. They didn't even wait for people to leave. Doors were opened, contents were removed, and by morning, 3 buildings were empty. The city says it's investigating, but no charges have been filed, because technically, nothing illegal happened. That's the trick, isn't it? You build a system so big, so complex, that by the time it turns on you, it's no one's fault. No one told the algorithm to ruin your life. It just did what it was trained to do. And that's why I'm talking to you. Not to scare you, but to remind you what's at stake. We're not just fighting back against debt. We're fighting for the right to be seen as people again. There's some hope in that fight, and it's showing up in unexpected places. I got a voice recording last night from a man in Montana, a teacher. He didn't say much, just that his school closed, his pension vanished, and he didn't know what to do. Then he paused and said this. So I opened the gym. I found a box of notebooks. I wrote tally on the front of each. People write down what they take. They sign it. No rules, no guards, just paper and trust. First week it worked. Second week, someone wrote IOU and signed it with a smiley face. That's when I knew it was working. That stuck with me. Not because it's foolproof, but because it's human. You can't fake a smiley face on a ledger, not one that matters. We've heard about churches opening their doors, not for sermons, but for storage, of canned goods, batteries, tampons, bandages. The pews are full again, not with believers in a higher power, but in each other. We've heard about teenagers using old CB radios to build neighborhood networks, kids who don't remember a world before Wi-Fi learning how to tune frequencies by hand, calling out across static, not for fun, but to check on old people in buildings with no heat. We've heard about abandoned libraries becoming safe zones, reading rooms turned into infirmaries, card catalogs filled with hand-scrawled notes about which streets are safe, which homes will trade soup for candles, who has medicine and who needs it. And then there's the Haven. Yes, I've heard you. All the calls, the messages, the letters asking if it's real. It is. Somewhere in the mountains, exact location still unconfirmed, there's a working signal coming from a fortified community that's calling itself the Haven. It's not a cult, not a bunker, not a trap. It's people. They've figured out how to use certain sound frequencies to repel debt drones and collector units. They broadcast a pulse that jams location beacons. It's not perfect, but it works. We've had confirmed contact from 5 different directions: Colorado, Wyoming, Utah, Idaho, and northern Nevada. Survivors heading west and making it. They're asking for help, for skills, for grit, for anyone willing to contribute, not to lead, not to govern, just to show up and survive, together. If you're close to the mountains, and if you can still travel safely, consider heading there. Coordinates are limited, but if you're hearing the name whispered, you're already on the right path. The Haven is real, and they are holding the line. Let me give you another story. It's short. A child, no more than 9, sent a drawing. Crayons, folded paper, no words, just a picture of a house, a big one, a sun in the sky, and 4 people holding hands outside. Above it, the child wrote, in careful block letters, "Still here." That's it. That's the whole broadcast right there, isn't it? We are still here. Still breathing, still bartering, still building. And even if the systems never come back, even if the cards stay dead and the banks stay cold, we'll still be something they never expected. Alive. This is Jordan Hale. I'll be back after I check the antennas and warm my hands. If you're hearing this, write to me. Tell me what you see. Tell me what's changing in your corner of this collapsing map. You are not alone. Not yet. Not ever. This is Jordan Hale, and you're still tuned in to 99.3 FM, the last frequency. The signal's holding tonight, clearer than it's been in days. I don't know why. Maybe the clouds are giving me a little room. Maybe the wind's just kind. Either way, I'm staying on as long as I can. It's cold where I am. Not just the kind that makes your fingers ache. The kind that sits behind your ribs and doesn't leave, even when you light a fire. The kind of cold that comes from waiting too long for answers that never arrive. Some of you have written to ask what happens now. Not in the long term, not policy, not economics, not the big picture. Just tomorrow. What does a normal day look like when everything we knew about normal is gone? I can't answer that for everyone, but I can tell you what I've seen. People waking up before sunrise, not because of alarms, but because they don't sleep through the night anymore. Parents boiling water on hot plates. Kids learning how to siphon rainwater through coffee filters. Grandparents showing how to patch clothes with dental floss and a safety pin. Communities meeting in silence, real silence. No music, No phones, just eyes and nods, and the kind of presence that doesn't come through a screen. Someone asked me last night what I miss most. I told them, not being afraid of mail. We used to joke about bills piling up. Now a piece of mail might mean eviction, might mean seizure, might mean you've been flagged, classified, moved one notch closer to whatever counts as exile in this new world. But not all mail's like that. I got a letter today from a small town in Iowa. The envelope was sealed with wax, real wax, and inside was a list, not of names, not of debts, of meals. Monday, lentil soup, cornbread, stewed apples. Tuesday, potato hash, eggs, canned peaches. Wednesday, rice, beans, dandelion greens. This is what we served, the note said. This is what we shared. We wrote it down so we wouldn't forget we can still do good things. That one hit hard, because that's what this is underneath all the chaos. A fight not just to survive, but to stay kind, to remember we're still allowed to share. Even now, especially now. Some updates from the field. We've confirmed that several major buy now, pay later companies have ceased to exist entirely. No logins, no customer service, no refunds, just blank pages and broken links. Upstart filed for liquidation. SoFi's redirecting to a holding company no one's heard of. A former employee sent me screenshots, internal memos saying consumer trust volatility and liability realignment. Translation? You're not worth the trouble. Meanwhile, a new kind of black market is rising. Not for drugs, not for guns, for identities, people selling fake credit profiles, deep-faked bank statements, forged employment records, not to scam others, but just to rent a room, get a cell plan, keep the lights on in places where the system still half functions. It's desperation in disguise, but it's spreading. One man from Chicago said he paid a hacker 2 cans of propane and a silver ring to create a new credit identity. Fresh score, new name, blank slate. It worked for 3 days. Then the server went dark. Now he's sleeping in a stairwell. This is what we've come to. Reinventing ourselves in the shadows just to buy milk. There's a new signal bouncing around from the East Coast. An anonymous broadcast calling itself the Barter Line. It's a daily rundown of who's got what and where, what neighborhoods are trading, what streets are safe, what kinds of supplies people are willing to move. It sounds like a cross between a swap meet and a pirate radio station. But it works. Last night, they reported that a church in Baltimore was exchanging insulin for batteries, no questions asked. And in Pittsburgh, an abandoned post office is running on wind power. They're using the old mail slots to store community I owe us. 1 slot per person. All handwritten. No duplicates allowed. It's slow. It's messy. It's real. I want to read something that came in from the Northwest. No envelope. Just a square of cardboard. The kind you rip from the bottom of a cereal box. On it, someone wrote, "Our house was built on debt. When it fell, we built a new one on favors. Smaller, colder, but it doesn't lie to us." That's poetry, whether they meant it or not. Because the truth is, this new world we're making, it doesn't need to be sleek, or fast, or frictionless. It needs to be honest. It needs to be small enough to feel. You're going to hear rumors in the days ahead that the government is planning a national credit restoration bill, that there's a plan to roll out a social score system to determine loan eligibility, that private companies are developing trust passports to allow access to stores and shelters. Some of these things are real, some aren't. But the fact that we're even hearing about them tells you how quickly control is slipping. They can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. Too many people have already unplugged. Too many neighborhoods have already stopped asking permission. That doesn't mean it's easy, but it means it's happening. And if you're listening to this, you're part of it. This is Jordan Hale, and I'll stay on the air as long as I can. As long as there's something worth saying. As long as the wires hold. I've got more letters to read, more names to speak out loud, because that's how we stay real, by refusing to vanish. Talk again soon. This is Jordan Hale, 99.3 FM, the last frequency. Still here. The shack is colder tonight. Generators down to quarter fuel. I've got 2 blankets and a jacket someone mailed me wrapped around the transmitter, just to keep the condensation off the coils. You do what you have to. And I'll say this again. If you're still hearing my voice, then somewhere, somehow, the chain is still unbroken. That means more than you might realize. We've crossed a line, haven't we? It's no longer about what happened. That part's over. The credit system has collapsed. The cards don't swipe. The apps don't log in. The lines that once tethered us to modern life, auto payments, revolving balances, 720 scores, have snapped. We're not falling anymore. We've landed. And now comes the part no one prepared us for, living inside the wreckage. This morning, I got a call. Old landline. Man named Theo in a town west of St. Louis. He said, I used to manage risk for a living, ran models, trained the algorithm that decided who got to borrow and who didn't. Now I'm carrying water for my neighbor's goats in exchange for bread. He didn't sound bitter, just awake, like someone who'd finally seen the shape of the thing he helped build. He told me something else too. Said the algorithm he worked on didn't just look at debt. It looked at behavior, web activity, social circles, whether you ordered takeout on a Thursday, whether your Facebook status said worried more than twice a week. It wasn't about risk. It was about narrative. Your story didn't have to be true. It just had to look safe. And now that story's been cut mid-sentence, and everyone's back to chapter 1. We've confirmed new reports from Pennsylvania, the Carolinas, and southern Ohio. Entire towns being designated as credit dead zones, not by the government, by private security firms under contract from the lenders who are still liquid. What does that mean? It means if you live there, your property becomes fair game. Dead assets are being auctioned while people are still in the homes. Drones hover. Tags get placed. Trucks follow. A woman in Durham said she opened her front door to find a QR code sticker on her mailbox. When she scanned it, it linked to a debt recovery portal, with her name already pre-filled and an offer to schedule an orderly exit. Orderly. That's the word they're using now. Not eviction. Not repossession. Orderly transitions. We're living in a country run by euphemisms. But not everyone's playing by those rules. There's something happening in the small towns, quietly. No hashtags, no press releases. They're closing their roads. I got a map from a listener in Missouri showing barricades marked not with words, but with colors. Green for safe to trade, yellow for watch for surveillance, red for hostile, turn back. They're not waiting for help. They're setting their own terms. One town replaced their traffic lights with wood-carved signs that say, "We don't sell here." Another started a local credit exchange based on labor hours. You don't earn points, you earn favors. 1 hour of sewing equals 1 hour of repair. 2 hours of childcare equals 1 meal and battery charge. No central bank, no interest, no fine print. And somehow, it's working. It's not efficient, but it's real. And when you've been living under the cold logic of an algorithm that never knew your name, reality, messy, slow, human reality, feels like freedom. Now let me tell you what's coming next. It won't be pretty. We're getting whispers, more than whispers, that private militias are being hired to secure high-value debt recovery corridors. That means areas where repossessions are expected to get violent. They're not officially affiliated with any state, but they're armed, and they've got marching orders. The flashpoints? So far, Houston suburbs, western New Jersey, Inland Empire in California, and parts of northern Georgia. If you're in any of those zones and you start seeing SUVs without plates or drones running in grid patterns overhead, get off the roads. Don't wait for a knock. I don't say this to scare you. I say this because you still have a choice. You can disappear before they try to delete you. I got a shortwave burst this morning from a woman holed up near Lake Tahoe. Her message was clipped by static, but one sentence came through clear. They want you to leave quietly. Don't. I don't know her name. I hope she's still alive. But I've written that sentence down, taped it to my wall. They want you to leave quietly. Don't. Because silence is how they win. And noise, that stubborn, fragile noise we make when we refuse to vanish, is what holds this frequency together. Now, for some small glimmers. A community in Portland has restored a microgrid using salvaged panels and repurposed Tesla batteries. They're powering an old elementary school, now a hub for food, medicine, and hot water. In New Mexico, a traveling mechanic named Luis has converted his truck into a mobile repair shop. He barters tools for fuel, fixes bikes and generators, and leaves behind hand-drawn wiring diagrams in Spanish and English. He's been through 20 towns in 3 weeks. People are calling him El Ingeniero, the engineer. And in Wisconsin, an old librarian named Sarah reopened the doors to her shuttered branch, not for books, but as a gathering spot. No agenda, just heat, stories, coffee boiled over camp stoves. She wrote, "We don't lend anymore. We host. That's enough." Yeah, that's more than enough. This is Jordan Hale speaking into the night, sending out what I can. The world as we knew it is gone. But what we build in its place, that's up to us. Back soon. Jordan Hale, 99.3 FM, the last frequency. You're still with me. That means something. Tonight, there's a strange quiet in the air. Not the kind that means peace. The kind that comes right before something breaks. Static on the lines has been heavier. I've had to swap out my receiver cable 3 times already. It's like the sky is full of something we're not supposed to hear. I want to tell you what just came in. A letter from a woman in Kansas. Handwritten. 2 pages. Folded with care. She wrote, "My husband used to say debt was like gravity, always pulling. You could jump, you could climb, but it never let go. Now it's like the planet vanished. No rules, no weight, just floating. I thought that would feel free, but it feels like falling." That's what a lot of people are feeling right now. Not just broke, unmoored. We were all raised on a system that said, tomorrow would be better than today if we just played the game right. Swipe the card, pay the minimum, get the score, chase the dream. But now the game's off, and nobody remembers how to stand still. I got another message from a man outside Boise. He was a collections agent before everything crashed. Worked in one of those big glass towers. Headset, script, 5 monitors, always chasing quota. Now he's sleeping in his cousin's garage. He wrote, I called people every day, told them their grace period was over, told them they were in default, told them I understood, even though I didn't. Now I do. Now the calls don't come in, but I still hear them in my head. I thought I was just doing my job. Turns out I was digging my own grave with every word. He didn't ask for forgiveness. He just asked to be heard. So I'm reading it, out loud, so he knows someone did. That's all most of us want now, isn't it? To be seen. To be remembered. To not go down as an anonymous entry in a database that no longer exists. There's a town in Mississippi where they've started lighting lanterns on porches at night. If the lantern's red, it means we have food. If it's blue, we need something. If it's green, safe to stay. It's simple, beautiful, quiet. You don't need permission to build a new system. You just need people who show up. Now some hard news. The Treasury's new plan, what they're calling the stabilization option, leaked online 2 hours ago. It's real. It's brutal. Here's the short version. A federal debt amnesty for Americans with under $10,000 in total unsecured debt. Everyone else? You get a choice. Enroll in a national repayment protocol or lose all access to remaining federal services, mail, Medicaid, passport renewal, Social Security checks. It's not forgiveness. It's compliance by starvation. You want your kids' insulin? Enroll. You want to keep your house? Enroll. You want to send a letter? Enroll. One listener from Vermont summed it up best. They replaced the dollar with obedience. And here's where it gets worse. Private investors, Wall Street types, hedge funds, sovereign wealth operations, they've already started buying up the rejected portfolios. The debt that won't be forgiven, it's now collateral, backed by your name, your past, your unpaid bills. They're calling it secondary citizenship. Your rights, auctioned off by spreadsheet. You think that's hyperbole? Tell that to the man who showed up at his local clinic and found the doors locked. Not because it was closed, because his patient record was now flagged as non-compliant asset. His medical file was bundled with his credit report. That's where we are. Not science fiction. Just America, 6 weeks after the score stopped meaning anything. There's one more story I need to tell you tonight. It comes from a kid in Detroit. His name's Kenny, 17 years old. Lives with his grandmother. Used to work part-time at a grocery store. Now he runs a network of homemade solar chargers rigged from lawn lights and bike parts, charges people's phones, accepts old batteries, clean socks, aspirin, anything that helps. He wrote, I don't know what the rules are now, but I know the people on my block need each other, and I know that if I stop helping, it all goes dark. That's the line that got me. If I stop helping, it all goes dark. Kenny, if you're listening, you're not alone. You're part of something a lot bigger than a power grid or a payment system. You're part of the rebuild, not the return. The rebuild. And we need you. I'll sign off in a few. Gotta warm the antenna. Wind's up again, and I've heard coyotes near the ridge. But before I go, let me just say this. You're not broken. You're not worthless. You are not the sum of what you owe. You are what you carry forward. And if that's just one can of soup, or one smile, or one voice shouting into static, that's enough. This is Jordan Hale, still here, still holding the line. I'll be back once the fire dies down. Until then, stay warm, stay honest, and if you can, leave the lantern on. This is Jordan Hale, 99.3 FM, the last frequency. Still holding on. The fire's out for now. The coals are warm enough to last till sunrise. I've got one battery left on reserve and a bit of solar saved in the cells from yesterday. If you're hearing this, it means the shack made it through another night. We got rain this morning. Just a little. Enough to stir the dust into mud. Enough to trick the roof into dripping again. I caught what I could in the basin. Every drop feels heavier now, like it's trying to remember when it used to fall on a working world. I've been thinking about the silence between broadcasts. Not just mine, all of them. Back before the collapse, if a station went off the air, you didn't notice. Something else would pick up the slack. Some other voice, some other show. Now when I go quiet, I know what fills the gap. Wind, fear, doubt, maybe a little hope. Maybe you. Maybe someone else reading an old letter by candlelight, wondering if they should pick up a mic of their own. If you've got the gear, I say do it. You don't need permission to speak, not anymore. Just say your name. Tell us what's real. That's all it takes. Tonight, I want to read something from a place called Cedar Bluffs. That's in Nebraska. Tiny town. Population was maybe 600 before this all hit. Might be less now. The letter's from a woman named Beth. She used to be a dental assistant. We kept the clinic open as long as we could, but the gloves ran out. The gas lines dried up. People stopped coming. Not because they didn't need help, but because they didn't want to owe anything. So we emptied the drawers. We took everything useful, gave it away. Toothbrushes, floss, the last few antibiotics we had. No questions asked. Now the building's a meeting hall. We have potlucks every Wednesday. Bring what you can. Stay as long as you want. No sermons, no speeches, just food and the quiet sound of people not giving up. That's what matters. Not the charts, not the markets, not the fake reassurance from suits who don't remember how to fry an egg. It's the sound of people not giving up. And that's happening more than you might think. In the last 3 days, I've logged over 100 new signals on the band. None of them official. None of them asking for money. Just people broadcasting whatever they can. One man in Tulsa reads poems every night, written by neighbors who leave scraps of paper under his door. A mother in northern Wisconsin sings lullabies at 8 p.m. sharp, hoping her son, stuck across the state, can still hear her voice through the snow. And then there's the voice in the desert. Doesn't say where. Just repeats the same words every hour. You are still real. You are still real. You are still real. Sometimes that's all it takes. Because the biggest lie they sold us wasn't that we could all be rich. It was that we were only valuable if we could pay for something. But you don't need a score to hold someone's hand. You don't need a loan to share your fire. And you damn sure don't need a card to stay alive. There's a kid out west, Oregon, I think, who's built a small trading outpost out of an abandoned gas station. He calls it the Ledger. It's not a store. It's a board. People come by and write down what they have and what they need. A little chalk, a lot of trust. No one steals. No one hoards. One of the rules, scrawled in big block letters, we all ran out of money. We didn't run out of heart. If I could staple that to every drone flying overhead, I would. We've had some trouble near the Gulf Coast. Confirmed that 2 private recovery firms clashed near Baton Rouge. Gunfire, 3 homes torched. Locals are calling it the Repo riot. No arrests. Because there's no one left to make them. The sheriff's office was evicted last week. They're operating out of a church basement now. And no one's listening to the mayors. Not since they started accepting in-kind payments from credit enforcement teams, food, power, fuel, in exchange for silence. It's not governance. It's scavenging with titles. But there are still some holding the line. A mayor in northern Maine refused to let a single resident be removed from housing, even after the bank called in her own mortgage. She left City Hall, moved into the shelter, started cooking meals herself. She broadcast this over ham radio. If they want to take what's left of our homes, they can eat what's left of my debt. It takes a certain kind of courage to burn the ladder behind you and stand in the fire with everyone else. That's the kind of courage that matters now. Because the old systems aren't just failing, they're fighting back. And they want you to believe the collapse is your fault. But it's not. It never was. You didn't ask for interest rates to be weaponized. You didn't sign up to have your groceries judged by a credit score. You didn't volunteer to be turned into a risk profile and fed into a machine that only speaks in denial messages and APR percentages. All you wanted was to make it, to care for your kids, your elders, your neighborhood. And now you're doing that without the mask of debt. And that's terrifying to the people who used to sell you worth by the swipe. Because it turns out, you never needed them. You just needed each other. This is Jordan Hale running on backup power and black coffee. I'll be back once the batteries cool and the wind dies down. Until then, leave the light on. Somebody might need it. This is Jordan Hale, 99.3 FM, the last frequency. Still here. It's past midnight now. Hard to tell anymore without a proper clock. The sun rises later every day, or maybe it just feels that way. Nights stretch longer out here when the only light comes from firewood and low batteries. I've been listening to the hum again. That faint, low buzz that hangs under everything. Some say it's leftover signal bleed from the credit towers. Others say it's nothing at all, just the sound of a world losing its grip. But I don't think it's nothing. I think it's the sound of everything trying to hold together. Old copper wires, buried data lines, solar rigs patched with tape and faith, voices stretched thin over static. It's the sound of us not letting go. I want to read you something from a woman in Nevada. She didn't include a name, just signed it, a mother. When the cards stopped working, we had 2 days of food. My daughter kept asking when the grocery store would open again. I told her, maybe never. She asked if that meant we were going to die. I said no. I took her out back, showed her how to cut kindling, how to trap heat in a sleeping bag, how to boil water from the gutter. Every night since then, we tell stories. No screens, no sound, but our voices. Last night, she told me one. It was about a girl who got stuck in a world where everything ran on numbers. And then the numbers stopped, so she learned to talk to trees. And the trees helped her find food and water and new people who didn't need numbers to see her. I asked her what the story was called. She said, Tuesday, because that's what day it was. That letter didn't make me cry. Not at first. But later, I poured some rainwater into a mug, and my hand shook. And the tears came anyway. Not because it's sad, because it's still human. Because even now, we're still telling stories. Still raising kids, still renaming the days. Not because we forgot how to count, but because we chose to count something else. And that's what they never planned for. All their graphs and projections and scoring tools. They never accounted for what we'd do when the machine stopped feeding us. They thought we'd eat each other. They thought we'd beg for the plug to be put back in. They didn't think we'd start living again. Now I want to tell you something happening in the cities. It's not all collapse. It's not all rage. There are new sounds rising in the dark. In Cleveland, someone's rebuilt the bell system from an old university. Every hour, on the hour, a chime rings across the campus. A real bell, not digital. People pause. They breathe. They mark the hour, not for commerce, not for payroll. Just to remember that time still belongs to us. In Baltimore, a teenager turned an abandoned AT&T storefront into a message board. Paper flyers, marker pens. People post updates, trades, notes to lost friends. One of the notes says, "Sarah, if you're reading this, I have the dog. Meet me where we used to get chocolate milk." And beneath that, someone else scribbled, "I don't know Sarah, but I left a can of beans. Love is still real." That's the frequency we're on now. Not profit, not prediction, care. Small, stubborn, loud enough to survive. Some more updates before the signal drops again. Detroit's official city hall is no longer functioning. The mayor has reportedly relocated to a private estate outside Lansing. In his absence, a coalition of barbershops, corner stores, and retired teachers have formed what they're calling the People's Ledger. It's not a government. It's not a bank. It's a living document, updated daily, of who needs what and who has what to give. They store it on a wall, written in chalk. When it rains, they rewrite it. No servers, no passwords, just memory and patience. They've already resolved 3 eviction disputes, all without money, all without force. Some say it won't scale, that it's doomed to fall apart. Maybe it is, but it's standing longer than the last 5 banks did. And maybe that's the point. Elsewhere, the collapse is spreading into places most people don't think about. Jails. People forget that many inmates rely on credit cards for commissary, for communication with family, even for medicine. When the cards stopped working, the prisons went quiet. Now we're hearing stories of systems going dark from the inside. Prison guards walking off the job. No food deliveries, no power, and in some places, inmates leaving, not breaking out, just leaving, because there's no one left to keep them in. I'm not here to debate who deserves what, but I will say this: if the system can't even hold the people it locked away, then maybe it was never really holding us either. A man from Arizona sent me a map today, hand-drawn, full of symbols, triangles for safe houses, stars for trading posts, X's for roads no longer passable. He said, "This isn't a map of what's broken, it's a map of what we've saved. I'm going to copy it and send it west. Maybe it'll find you. Maybe you'll add to it. That's how we build now. Not with concrete, with memory." This is Jordan Hale, still watching the moon through the broken ceiling, still talking to whoever's out there. If you've got breath in your lungs and warmth in your hands, you're part of this story. You don't need clearance. You don't need cash. You just need to show up. I'll be here, static or not. Back soon. This is Jordan Hale, 99.3 FM, the last frequency. It's still night here, or maybe early morning, the kind of hour when nothing feels real. The fire won't stay lit and the signal crackles more than usual. But I'm still broadcasting. If you're hearing this, you're surviving, and that's all it takes. I got a letter today from someone calling themselves the janitor. No return address, just a folded napkin with handwriting in pencil. I used to clean office towers, 20 floors of glass and marble and fake smiles. When the collapse hit, the offices emptied. But I stayed. I slept on the 21st floor, boiled water in the lobby fountain, planted onions in the planter boxes out front. And every morning, I mopped the marble floors. Not because anyone walked on them, just because it reminded me I was still a person. That letter got to me because there's something about routines that make us feel human. Even now, even when the world has no schedule, no boss, no bill collector knocking at your inbox, the janitor isn't just surviving, he's keeping dignity alive. He's still sweeping the ruins. And somehow, that's what makes it feel like the ruins won't win. Let me tell you about something happening in El Paso. They've started a paper radio. That's what they call it. It's a weekly newsletter printed with salvaged ink and hand-cranked duplicators. They pass it from person to person, on foot, on bikes, on old skateboards. Each issue has 4 sections: who's alive, who needs help, what's been traded, what stories people are telling. They don't ask for payment. They don't take credit. They just ask you to write something back. One kid sent in a drawing of a bird with broken wings, said it still flew in dreams. That was enough to make the front page. We used to have stock tickers and market reports. Now we have birds with broken wings. And honestly, I'll take that trade any day. Out in rural Tennessee, they're broadcasting music again. Not ads, not sponsored playlists, just songs. Vinyl spun by candlelight. 1 song per hour, chosen by hand. Then dead air, so the signal doesn't overheat. You can't request. You can't skip. You just listen. And in that hour of waiting, people breathe. They stop pacing. They sit with their thoughts. That's what we've forgotten, what it means to sit with silence. Silence used to be scary. Now it's sacred. But make no mistake, the noise is still out there. Lenders aren't done. They're just changing shape. We've confirmed a growing number of debt enforcement agencies are switching to non-monetary penalties. That means if you can't pay, they don't just take property, they take time. Labor contracts are being handed out under the new Emergency Debt Reconciliation Act, EDRA. That's what they're calling it. But let's be honest, it's indentured servitude. You owe $15,000 on a car you lost in the freeze. Now you owe 6 months at a processing center in Phoenix, sorting recycled circuit boards. Can't afford a balloon mortgage? Congratulations. You're headed to a temporary reclamation facility in Ohio to clean copper wire. They're not even hiding it anymore. The new contracts say things like non-currency reimbursement through federally supervised contribution cycles. Read that again. Contribution cycles. They're trying to turn slavery into a subscription. But people are pushing back. Out in Colorado, a group of machinists blocked the highway leading into one of the first EDRA facilities. They dismantled old tractors, parked them across the road, welded the doors shut, and lit signal fires. They held for 2 days. On the 3rd, reinforcements showed up. Not police, not military, just more neighbors. And the trucks turned around. Not because of force, because they knew the numbers didn't add up anymore. You can't detain everyone if no one complies. That's what they're afraid of. Not violence. Refusal. Quiet, calm, collective refusal. And it's spreading. I got a call, landline, from a woman who runs a diner in North Dakota. She said, "We stopped asking for cards. We stopped asking for cash. Now you eat what you need and leave what you can." Some days we get eggs, some days a radio part, sometimes just a story. It's not profit, but we're not starving either. That's the new economy. Not measured in GDP or credit growth. Measured in shared hunger, shared warmth, shared presence. I want to close with one more thing tonight. It's a note from a girl named Rosie, 9 years old, written in blue crayon on the back of an old cereal box. She wrote, "I made a game with my little brother. It's called Power Out. We pretend we have to find light using only hugs and stories. If you hug someone, they get 1 light. If you tell a story, they get 2. We play until everyone is bright again." That's it. That's the game. That's the world we're building, whether we meant to or not. 1 hug, 1 story, 1 light at a time. This is Jordan Hale. No money, no map, no promise of tomorrow, but a voice and a signal. And for now, that's enough. Back soon. This is Jordan Hale, 99.3 FM, the last frequency. Still holding the line. The signal's weaker tonight. Might be the weather rolling over the mountains, or maybe someone out there doesn't want this frequency getting too far. Either way, I'll keep talking until the wires fry or my voice gives out. I've been thinking about doors lately. We used to walk through them without noticing. Into grocery stores, banks, offices, hospitals. Now most of those doors are locked. Some of them are broken off the hinges. Others are guarded. Not by security, but by silence, dust, time. But every now and then, someone opens a new one. A boy named Marcus in Pennsylvania turned the back of a broken-down school bus into a pantry, took what little canned food he had, lined it up, and left a cardboard sign that said, "If you're hungry, you're home." No lock, no passwords, just trust. Last I heard, people had added blankets, baby formula, even a flute. That's what we do now. We open doors in places nobody thought to look. And the ones who used to keep the gates, the credit firms, the landlords, the lenders, they're still trying to slam them shut. We've confirmed a disturbing new development coming out of what used to be the Northeast Corridor. Multiple reports of credit recovery zones being set up by private contractors along key interstate stretches, specifically I-95, I-76, and parts of the Jersey Turnpike. These are not government checkpoints. These are privately run roadblocks, staffed by uniformed men with badges that say things like Asset Protection Officer or Debt Stabilization Crew. They're scanning IDs, not for warrants, not for safety, for score history. If your name shows up on the blacklist, dead account, unverified balance, flagged payment patterns, you don't pass. And in some cases, they take what they want: backpacks, bikes, phones, in one case, a box of diapers. I have a recording. It's grainy, but you can hear a man shouting, "My daughter needs those. She's 2. And then silence. Then the sound of tires and gravel. This isn't debt collection. This is loot in a suit. Sanctioned robbery wrapped in fine print. But it's not going uncontested. Down in Virginia, a group calling themselves the Eastern Shield is organizing road convoys, supply trucks, volunteer medics, communications relays. They operate without leaders, no hierarchy, just radios and rules. One rule above all: we don't ask for credit, we ask what you need. They've already escorted 7 towns through recovery zones. In one case, they built a fake funeral procession, complete with black vans and paper flowers, to get food through a toll gate. The guards didn't stop them, because even in collapse, grief still scares people more than hunger. I want to tell you what just came in from Montana. A retired rancher named Ed. He's been mailing me updates on what he calls the cow ledger. That's what they're using now, a cattle-backed economy. Each cow equals 100 trade units. But they don't trade the cows. They trade the right to name the cow. I asked him why that matters. He wrote, "Because you don't eat something with a name, you honor it, you trust it, you build value around something alive, and that's what we forgot. Value has to breathe." Let that sink in. Value has to breathe. Try putting that into a blockchain. Back in the cities, things are shifting again. More blackouts. Not power, connectivity. We're hearing that some of the last online platforms are blocking user accounts based on activity from before the crash. If you ever disputed a charge, posted about canceling your cards, filed a complaint, your digital identity might now be under review. No warning, no way back in. Your face? Flagged. Your phone number? Locked. Your name? Sold to a third-party risk handler, who now decides if you're eligible to access what's left of the web. And this isn't being done by accident. This is a deliberate move to scrub the debt narrative. If they can't make you pay, they'll make sure no one hears how you got free. But we're louder than they think. This frequency? It's not just mine anymore. People are rebroadcasting from old police towers, AM relays, pirate antennas bolted to grain silos and rooftops. One group in Minneapolis uses a rig made from a repurposed ice cream truck. Every night, they drive the streets, antennas raised, music playing, windows open. Their signal ID just says, "We're still here." And yeah, they are. So are you. So am I. One more story tonight. This one's short. A woman in New Orleans. Her name's Dee. Used to be a bartender. Now she runs a community kitchen out of an abandoned high school gym. I asked her what she missed most from before. She said, "I miss hearing people laugh without checking their phone right after. I miss hugs that weren't about goodbye. But mostly, I miss giving someone a drink and knowing they didn't have to earn it." Then she paused, and she said, "But you know what? I don't miss the score. I don't miss watching people shrink when their card got declined. I don't miss explaining why tap water costs money." That's it, isn't it? We don't miss what we thought we would. We miss what felt real. We miss each other. This is Jordan Hale, still awake, still listening, back when the static clears. And if you're out there, don't wait for the world to be fixed. Make a fire, make a meal, make a sound. That's the credit that never runs out. This is Jordan Hale, 99.3 FM, the last frequency, still on the air. It's cold in the shack tonight, not just the kind of cold you feel in your skin, but in your teeth, your breath, your bones, the kind that reminds you how much the old world ran on temperature control, thermostats, climate zones, filtered heat piped in on a monthly billing cycle. Now, Now heat's something you earn. Chopped wood, shared blankets, the warmth of another body curled beside yours, just breathing. I had to trade a wind-up flashlight for a bundle of dry logs this morning. Fair deal. The man I gave it to smiled without saying a word. That's how we barter now, quietly, face to face, like it might disappear if we speak too loudly. I got a message today on a shortwave bounce relay. It traveled over 5 towers, handwritten, scanned, sent through 5 different modems like a chain of whispers. Took 4 days to reach me. It was from a woman in Toronto. She said, "I'm not American, but I'm watching. Our banks froze international transfers. Our stores stopped accepting US cards. We've closed our borders in every way except words. But the collapse bled through the seams. Our kids still use apps from your tech giants. Our groceries still rely on your trucks. Our debts still trace back to your indexes. We're not out. We're just waiting. And I don't think the waiting's going to save us." She's right. This isn't a fence anymore. It's a flood, and credit was the river. We all swam in it, even if we pretended not to. And now that it's dried up, we're coughing up sand and asking why we're thirsty. Across the Atlantic, we're hearing chatter that certain EU governments are moving to forcibly convert US assets held by their citizens. Not freeze, convert. That means if you've got a dollar account in Germany or France, it might be automatically rolled over into a stability-linked reserve. Code for, we don't trust you anymore. And once trust breaks, it doesn't rebuild with handshakes. It rebuilds with scars. I want to switch gears now. There's a story coming out of Missouri that I need to share. A man named Carter. He ran a pawn shop for 22 years. When the collapse hit, he didn't board it up, didn't lock the doors. He opened them wider. He wrote on the window, "This is no longer a pawn shop. This is a memory exchange." He let people bring in whatever they had, trinkets, letters, photos, worn-out watches, toys. In return, they could take something that reminded them of home. One woman brought in her father's coin collection, left with a cracked snow globe that looked just like the one she lost in a fire. A boy brought in a broken phone, left with a Walkman and a cassette labeled Mixtape 1994. Carter said, "None of it's worth anything, but none of it's worthless." That's the line that stuck with me. None of it's worthless. Not you. Not your name. Not the parts of yourself you had to leave behind when the collapse came rolling in like a slow tide full of IOUs. People ask me sometimes, off the record, if I think this will end, if the cards will come back, if the markets will reboot, if we'll swipe and click and forget all of this ever happened. I don't think so, and I don't want it to. Not like before. Because before, that world was bleeding to death behind a paywall. This one's rough, yeah, but it's real. I heard from a nurse in Spokane. She works out of a converted laundromat now. No insurance, no billing codes, just charts scribbled on scrap paper and painkillers kept cool in an old freezer run on solar. She said, "I can't fix everything, but I can sit with someone while they hurt. And that's medicine too." She told me about a man who came in with a broken ankle, said he'd fallen off a roof trying to fix an antenna. When she set the bone, he cried. Not from the pain, but because it was the first time in 3 weeks someone touched him without asking to see his ID. That's the currency now. Touch, time, trust. No barcode, no balance, no expiration date. I'll wrap tonight with a story from someone close to home. A woman I met before the station fell dark. Her name's Laurel. She was a librarian. After the collapse, she took all the leftover books from the city library and stacked them in a church basement. Hundreds of them. No system. No Dewey Decimals. Just stacks. She called it the shelter for forgotten stories. People come in, pick a book, leave a note inside when they're done. Some notes are reviews, others are full-blown confessions. She read one over the air last week. It said, "I found this book on the day I thought I wouldn't wake up tomorrow. I did. I'll leave it here for the next person who might need a reason." That's what we are now. Not consumers. Not borrowers. Not profiles on a credit ledger. We're keepers of each other's reasons. This is Jordan Hale. Still here. Still listening. Still believing that we're worth more than what we owe. Back soon. This is Jordan Hale, 99.3 FM, the last frequency. Night again. The wind's pushing through the rafters like it's searching for something. Sometimes it hums just right and it sounds like music. Like the ghost of a melody from a life that doesn't exist anymore. I haven't had a warm meal in 4 days, but someone left a tin of peaches on the steps outside the shack. No note, no knock, just the tin. Maybe they heard the broadcast. Maybe they just knew someone needed it more. Whoever you are, thank you. I'm still here because of that. It's strange, the things we trade now. Food for silence, tools for stories, peaches for breath. There's a town outside of Tulsa where people have stopped counting hours. No clocks, no schedules. They tell time in meals, sunrises, and the number of chairs filled around the fire. They don't ask what job you had. They ask who taught you how to cook. They don't ask what you used to earn. They ask what you're willing to share. That town's called Candle Ridge. No electricity, no fuel, but more light than any place I've heard about in weeks. I got a recording sent from there on a courier drive. A boy, maybe 10, singing by the fire. The words don't matter. It wasn't even in tune. But you could hear the people around him, breathing, smiling, alive. And I realized then, that's what wealth sounds like now. Not applause, not bank alerts, just a child singing in the dark while others listen. You can't counterfeit that. Let's talk about what's happening with the old lenders. They're not gone, just hiding, restructuring, using new names. One of them, a company that used to sell mortgages under a cheerful blue logo, now calls itself Civic Equity Services. They're offering repayment accelerators to desperate families. Food and water now, if you agree to surrender your land in a year. But they don't tell you that the paperwork doesn't hold up anymore. There are no courts left to enforce these contracts. Just men with vests and badges, hoping you don't ask too many questions. But people are starting to. In Arkansas, a retired legal clerk has begun issuing people's claims denials, handwritten rejections of any document tied to pre-collapse credit claims. They carry no legal force, but they carry meaning. She reads them aloud every morning outside the courthouse steps, which now serve as a food stall and free clinic. Yesterday, she said, "If you were lied to when the light was green, you don't owe the thief a favor just because the power went out." She doesn't shout. She just says it once. That's all it takes. Words getting out. Even in places where the networks are silent, the truth still leaks through. I want to read you something from Alaska. A woman there, Marisol, wrote me about her little cabin town, where snowmobiles have become ambulances and fishing hooks are more valuable than medicine. She said, "We thought we were already used to being forgotten. We were wrong. The difference now is we're forgetting them too." That line hit me hard. We're forgetting them too. The firms, the issuers, the executives who used to smile through screens and tell us we were pre-approved. Turns out they needed us more than we needed them. Because when the cards stopped working, they didn't know how to cook rice, or carry water, or ask for help without expecting interest. And we did. We still do. Another report just came in from Sacramento. The city's official buildings have been abandoned. A group of teachers has taken over City Hall, not to run it, but to repurpose it. They call it the table. It's not a metaphor. It's a literal, giant, hand-built table that runs the length of the main chamber. People gather around it, eat there, share supplies, read news, plan escapes and reunions. They say decisions are made by voice, not vote. They say if someone's too hungry to speak, the table waits. That's democracy now. Hungry, slow, and human. The debt collectors haven't reached them yet. But they're coming. Which brings me to the other side of this. The enforcement. It's changing. Less uniform now. Less organized. More freelance. People in Nevada reported seeing collection crews driving unmarked vans, dressed like hikers. They carry tablets, still somehow powered, full of names, addresses, flagged accounts. They knock once, they wait. If no one answers, they mark the door with chalk. A triangle inside a circle. No one knows what it means yet. But people are starting to wipe them off. Cover them with handprints, symbols, poetry. Anything to say, you don't own this space. You don't scare us. You don't get to mark us. That matters more than it seems. Because fear used to be a product they sold in bulk, and we bought it with every click, every deferral, every "I'll pay it off next month." But fear is losing its price tag, and they don't know what to do when we stop paying for it. This is Jordan Hale. Running low on fuel again, but still warm enough to keep talking. Still convinced the strongest currency left is a steady voice in the dark, and I'll keep using mine for as long as the wind doesn't take it. Back soon. This is Jordan Hale, 99.3 FM, the last frequency, still breathing, still broadcasting. The night's quiet in a strange way tonight. Not peaceful, not safe, just waiting. That's the feeling in the air now, isn't it? Everywhere. Cities, back roads, even the forests. People waiting to see what tomorrow forgets. Waiting for some kind of sign that the freefall is slowing. But I don't think it is. I think the ground is still far away, and we're all just learning how to fall with our eyes open. I got a voice message this morning on the analog line. A man in Chicago, used to be a locksmith, said he's been going door to door, not breaking in, not looting, but unlocking apartments for families who lost everything except the memories tied to those four walls. He said, "You wouldn't believe how many people forgot their own keys, or left them behind thinking they'd be back in a week." He doesn't ask for anything. He just unlocks the doors and waits. Sometimes the people who lived there come back. Sometimes they don't. But either way, he leaves them open, because he says this collapse didn't start with debt. It started with locked doors. So now he's undoing it, one click at a time. Meanwhile, the panic's shifting. It's no longer just about not having money. It's about not knowing who still does, and what they're willing to do with it. Some of the bigger surviving banks, at least the ones clinging to the ruins of Wall Street, are now offering hard credit tokens. They're not real currency, not cash, just digital promises. If you agree to sign over any future income, should income ever become a thing again, you're given a unique, traceable token. It's good for basic goods at select redemption markets. But here's the trick. The token follows you, and it learns. People are reporting that if you try to trade it, give it away, or use it outside the approved zones, it vanishes, just like that. So now we have money that watches us, learns us, punishes us for disobedience, and they're calling it a miracle of stability. But people aren't buying it, literally and figuratively. In Oregon, a woman named Lena runs a food station under a broken freeway overpass. She has a big red sign that reads, "No tokens, no tally, just bread." She bakes twice a day using old clay ovens fired with driftwood and trash, and she says people don't need to prove anything to deserve a meal. Last week, a man tried to hand her one of those tokens. She baked it into a loaf of bread and handed it back. Said, "Chew on that." And just like that, the line laughed. Not out of mockery, but out of relief. Because someone had finally reminded them that control can't be coded into everything. Some things still burn. Some things still bite back. We've got a growing number of communities abandoning the idea of names altogether. I'm serious. They're choosing numbers, symbols, plant names, colors. One woman now goes by Thistle, another by Blue. They say names are how the credit system found us, tracked us, filed us into risk profiles. They say if you rename yourself, you take yourself off the ledger. That's not just rebellion, that's rebirth. Out west, in an old mining town turned shelter, every new arrival is asked, "Who do you want to be now?" And they write it on the side of the church. Not in ink, in ash. Because when the wind takes it, it means you've been accepted. I heard from a man in Maine this morning. He was old. I could hear it in his voice. Rough, slow, like he carried time in his ribs. He said, "The world got quiet too fast. When the machines stopped chirping, I started hearing the trees again. And then I realized I've never really listened to them before." He planted a chair in the woods, sits there every day, doesn't call it meditation, doesn't post about it, just listens. And that, he says, is his new job. Tree listener. He laughed at that, but not a sad laugh, a full one, like he hadn't laughed in years and forgot how good it felt to do it with no one watching. That's the thing we're all finding again, slowly. The parts of ourselves we sold without knowing, to stay relevant, to stay busy, to stay paid. Now that the price tag's been torn off the world, we're starting to remember what was free all along. This is Jordan Hale. It's late. The fire's getting low. The battery's blinking again. But I'm still here. Because maybe someone out there just needs to hear another voice tonight. A voice that doesn't want to sell them anything, or approve them, or tell them to pay later. Just a voice that says, "You're still here, and so am I. Back soon." This is Jordan Hale, 99.3 FM, the last frequency, still breathing into the static. Tonight's a different kind of quiet, the sort that settles over you, heavy like a wool blanket soaked in rain. It's not fear, not exactly, more like knowing too much and still not knowing enough. there's a kind of heaviness in the air when the things we built our lives on finally stop pretending to work. We've confirmed tonight that 4 of the last 5 national debt negotiation hotlines have gone permanently dark. That means no more flexible repayment options, no more bridge programs, no more financial wellness representatives. The last one, based in Atlanta, played hold music on loop for 11 straight hours before someone cut the line. People kept listening anyway. Someone recorded it, passed it to me. No voice, just that same 4-chord piano melody, over and over, sounding more like a funeral dirge the longer it played. A lot of people said they cried when it stopped, because even an automated lie is something to hold on to when everything else is slipping through your fingers, but it's gone now. And in its place, a different kind of communication. We're seeing the rise of what people are calling signal walls. Not digital, not online. Real walls, brick, plaster, wood, painted with chalk, charcoal, anything that leaves a mark. You write what you need, or what you have, or just a message in case someone you love might pass through. In Pittsburgh, the signal wall outside the old Greyhound station is 5 blocks long now. It reads like a conversation between ghosts and the living. Needed, insulin, small dose. Have, boots, size 10. Looking to trade. Sarah, if you're reading this, Mom's safe. Try to get to Erie. I forgive you. And one that simply says, I'm still me. That one's circled in red. There's something about that. Something we forgot. Back when everything was sorted by algorithms and filed away into behavior profiles. We were never our shopping carts, or our bank statements, or the bills we forgot to pay on time. We were still us. Even when they told us we were risk. Even when the system said you're no longer valuable. We were still us, and we still are. Another letter arrived this morning, folded into the back of a journal someone sent me through a courier loop in Colorado. It was written by a man who once worked as a compliance officer at a major credit bureau. He didn't say which one, didn't have to. He wrote, I spent 23 years building risk models. We used birthdays, zip codes, late fees, how long someone hesitated before clicking submit payment. I knew what I was doing, but I told myself it wasn't personal, just numbers, just math. And now? I live in a bus with 7 other people, sharing food we grow in buckets. None of us have a score anymore, but every one of them knows how to sit still, listen, and forgive. I never met a risk model that knew how to do that. He closed it with, we were measuring the wrong things all along. There's something big happening in the South. Unconfirmed, but whispered loud enough to make it this far north. They're calling it the Ledger Fire. Supposedly, a group of ex-data engineers found a backup data center, someplace still running off geothermal generators. It housed credit histories, loan records, collections metadata, full customer psychographics. They lit it up. Literally, burned it to the ground, and taped a note to the fence that read, You don't get to hold this over us anymore. No arrests, no public statement. But the area's been under aerial surveillance since, and we've got ham traffic from Alabama to Mississippi saying things feel freer, lighter, as if the gravity that used to pull people toward guilt and debt and silence just let go. And people started singing again. You can feel it, can't you? Not just survival, reclamation, not of things, not of property, but of voice, presence, meaning. I got one more story tonight, before I have to power down and save the juice for dawn. It's from a girl named Melody, 12 years old, living somewhere near Cheyenne, wrote on the back of a torn cereal box in crayon. She said, "My mom says we don't have any money, but we still have me. So every morning I sing while she boils water. I think that counts." Yeah, Melody, it counts. More than they ever measured. This is Jordan Hale. The lights are dimming, but the voices are getting louder. Keep singing. Keep scribbling. Keep writing your name on the walls of this broken world. They don't get to define us anymore. Back soon. This is Jordan Hale, 99.3 FM, the last frequency. There's frost on the windows tonight, crystals blooming along the edges like the shack itself is trying to feel something. The sky's clear though, stars blinking like static, like reminders. We're still part of something bigger, even if the systems forgot us. I boiled coffee this morning over a trash fire and watched a possum walk across the radio tower cables. Just strolled along like it owned the place. Maybe it does now. You'd be amazed how fast animals are adapting. No more streetlights, no more traffic. They're everywhere again. We were the ones who disappeared. And speaking of disappearances, I got word from someone near Atlanta, a hospital, stripped bare, no staff, no power, just gurneys in the hallways and echo in the stairwells. But taped to the front desk, a single page, handwritten, "Take what you need, don't take more. We're still trying." That's how people are surviving now. Not because they're strong, because they're trying. Even when no one's watching. Even when it hurts. Especially when it hurts. Let's talk about California. Not the coastal sprawl or the tech ghosts still pacing the bay. I'm talking inland, Modesto, Bakersfield, Fresno, places the news used to forget. Until now, whole blocks have turned into credit-free zones, neighborhoods with handwritten signs on stoplights that say, "No lenders past this point." They enforce it themselves, not with guns, with numbers. If someone from a bank or debt firm tries to enter, every house on the street turns on an air horn or pounds pots and pans. Dogs bark, kids shout, elders stare them down from porches. They don't give violence a reason to show up. They just make it louder than fear. And it works. The last time someone in a Repo uniform tried to roll through a place called Holtville, he left behind his clipboard and drove off without a word. Someone mailed that clipboard here. I'm looking at it now. A list of names, license plates, photos of cars. Someone had scrawled across the pages, "They are not numbers." And that's what this whole thing is, isn't it? A war over what we are. To them, we were digits, data points, profit centers, risks. But to each other, we're stories, we're hands, we're firewood and tea and old mixtapes passed across broken fences. There's a woman I heard about in Minnesota, used to run a karaoke bar. After the collapse, she gutted the place, saved the speakers, and turned it into a message house. People line up to speak into the mic. They don't sing anymore. They confess. Apologies, secrets, lost names, goodbyes. She records each one on cassette, labels them, shelves them, says maybe one day we'll find each other again. And if not, at least we'll have left something true behind. I got another story, this one from northern Arizona, dry country, dust and old fences, a community built inside an abandoned theme park. They call it Decline Land. Not joking. They live in the fake castles, sleep in bumper cars, use a Ferris wheel frame as a wind turbine, and every morning they raise a hand-painted flag that reads, "No refunds, no regrets." They have food, water, shelter. But more than that, they have laughter. They take turns telling jokes at dinner. Bad ones, long ones, the kind that fall flat and make people groan. And that's the point. Laughter, even the hollow kind, is a defiance. Because fear wants us quiet. Shame wants us still. But laughter? That means there's still something in us no one can repossess. Let me say that again. There is something in you no one can repossess. They took the credit lines. They froze the accounts. They erased your score. But they can't erase your breath. They can't erase the way your kid hugs you when they don't understand what's happening. They can't erase the rhythm of your heartbeat when the static clears, just long enough for someone like me to say, "You're not alone." And yeah, this is still Jordan Hale. Still here, still on the wire with a busted antenna, 2 working solar panels, and a half-burned coffee tin full of letters I can't bring myself to throw away. The night is long. The noise is loud. But you? You're louder. You're building something past the wreckage. And I'm going to keep the mic open as long as I've got power and a voice. Back soon.